Some people might interpret this little episode between Jesus and the religious and political leaders of his time as an exemplification of what we like to call in this country the separation of church and state. But if this reading is conjoined with the first reading, which is why the church presents the two of them together on this one day, we come to the conclusion, I think, that that is not a correct interpretation of what Jesus was saying. Isaiah is talking about the coming of the great emperor Cyrus, who wasn't a Jew, who was what we would call a pagan, and he conquered Israel and set up his kingdom there. And God is saying, even I can work through this non-Jewish ruler, this person who's taking over your country. Even I can work through him and do my will and have you see my will. Everything doesn't have to be as you plan it for it to be working out according to my plan. We like to use that expression, the separation of church and state, although it is erroneous. There is nothing in our Constitution that says the church and the state are separate. It says in the Constitution, the state will not establish any particular religion to be the religion of our country, which is a big step forward from the way things were in Europe, because ever since the Reformation, whatever duchy or kingdom or country you belong to, you are expected to be the co-religionist of the ruler of that country. So we were breaking away from all that by coming here. At least one group at a time was doing that. It wasn't a mass movement. But the point of these readings is that everything falls under the purvey of God. There is no area of human life which is not of God. And so even though we may have a country where we have, or we think we have, control over the way our country goes because we are a representative democracy, we have to be extremely careful that that concept doesn't cover a multitude of omissions on our part and where the country may go or the laws may go or individuals may go in our name in a way which is not of God's design and God's will. This is a very good reading to have a few weeks before an election, because it reminds us of our responsibility. And I think the big sin of omission for all of us is exactly that, a sin of omission, of a non-participation in the life of our country. And we don't think this is a big deal. Just, stay away from politics, My father used to say, don't talk religion or politics, which meant don't even think religion or politics. But that's abdicating our responsibilities. 80 years ago in Nazi Germany, where there was a legally elected government which went astray in serious matters and was not called to task by the electorate who had put them in office. Hitler was elected in 1933, and by 1937 there were laws on the books which said unproductive people should be done away with. And very, very few people, even the leadership of the churches, stood up and said nay to that. That's history. We don't do that kind of thing in this country. We don't do away with unproductive people. But we often are tempted, and sometimes do, put away with the undesirables. And you can fill in the blanks. Be they criminals, unwanted children, those people who just are a burden on society, they can be euthanized, we call it now. So we have to be very careful. That's not the only issue, but that's one glaring issue. And I think the sin of omission is that even though Hitler was elected with 75% of the people of the country voting for him, only 35% of our people actually go to the polls in any given election. That's a sin of omission. And I'm not polling for any particular candidate, but I think one of our biggest sin is withdrawal. Staying away from the issues because they're uncomfortable, not going to the polls because it's time-consuming. And this is not what God wants of us. If God has led us and permitted us to enter into a relationship with each other, which is called a representative democracy, then we owe it to each other to vote. We owe it to each other to go to the polls, to make sure that the country, we are the country, is going in the direction which is according to the will of God as we see it. That's not involving church and state. That's just Christian people being allowed to live and to vote and to act according to their conscience, or Islamic people, or Jewish people, or any other people who are citizens of our country. The religion that we celebrate on Sunday is a religion which permeates every aspect of our lives, because God permeates every aspect of our lives, be it personal, private, business, cultural, political. God must be there. The will of God must be paramount for all of us, or we cannot pray the Our Father honestly and say, "Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven," because God's will being done on earth is up to us.